Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me for this week's live video demonstration. Getting all set up here. I don't have any happy mail to show this week, but I'm sure by next week I'll have some happy mail to share with you. So I want to take a moment, and I've had a few questions about my color club. So I would like to take a moment before we get started on our project and go over any questions that you might have. Hi, Betty. I'm glad to see you today. Hope you're getting ready for work. So the color club is simply a way for people to be able to afford getting all of the new colors, which are going to fill in on these spots. There are 16 new colors, and the 16 new colors are listed here. So what we're going to do is each month an order will be placed for a stamp pad, for a, oh, you're still in Kansas, Betty, oh my. So each month an order will be placed for a stamp pad, a package of cardstock, and an ink refill that are all in the same color. It's going to be one of these new colors each month. And what will happen is you will be charged for a regular Stampin' Up! Order for those 3 items. And then you will be earning towards the Color Club rewards so that you can get, at the end of 6 months, then I will gift to you a package of the Stampin' Write markers, and it will be the new colors that have these wonderful colors integrated, so it will be a color family. So what you would choose from is one of these 4 color collections at every 6 months, and then at the end of the 16th month, so it would be 2 packages of these, and that at the end of the 16th month then the color club will be finished. And hi, Joanne. Hi, Donna. And then you'll get an extra special surprise, which I'm not going to disclose until the end of the 16 months. And along the way, you will get a lot of bonus tutorials featuring that color, some extra prizes, some goodies in the mail along the way just for participating in the club. There's lots of benefits. So if you have any other questions, then please feel free to leave them in the comments here. But the Color Club is going to start in June. The new catalog begins in June, and so the Color Club will begin in June. So I will need if you're going to sign up for the Color Club, then you need to sign up by, I would say, the 5th of June if you want to start with the first month. And that way we can get you on the 15th is when I'm going to place the orders. So what you do is go to my blog at jennystampsup.com, and on the sidebar there is an icon that looks like this, Color Club. Click it and it will take you to a page that has all this information, and then there will be a button that says sign me up. And once you click sign me up, you'll go to another website that will it's still part of my blog though, don't worry, but it will give you all this information again, and then you sign in right here. And I have put a special note: do not put your credit card information in this form. There's not a place for it, but sometimes people want to make sure that they're giving a lot of information and they want to share, and I don't want you to put your credit card information in here. I would rather call you and get it over the telephone just for security reasons, and then I would keep it in my secure filing system that is not accessible to the public. And then you will be charged just for a Stampin' Up! Order. And of course, yes, you can add to it every month, and if you add to it, then you're going to get lots of perks. And one of the perks just for being in Color Club is that you get my 12-pack tutorial for free. So you will get that 12-pack tutorial that I give to my customers who place an order. Each month it's a brand new tutorial pack. So there's a lot of benefits for Color Club. And I started this club because I want for stampers to be able to have an easy and an economic way to build up all of these beautiful new colors. And there's so many beautiful new colors that are coming out that it's hard to say, oh, I want them all, but I can't afford it. What do I do? Well, this is your solution. So if you have any questions about it, I am here and I'm happy to be able to answer them. Hi, Sue. Thanks for stopping by today. So if I'm your demonstrator, then odds are you have gotten one of these catalogs by now, and maybe you're making your shopping list. One thing to notate is that this catalog is going to be able to be ordered from afternoon Mountain Time on the 1st. So it's not going to be wake up at midnight and place your order. That has been done in the past, but it's going to be after 12 o'clock noon Mountain Time, and that way you can, I'm glad you like it, Joanne, and that way you can have your list ready with your item numbers, or if you need me to place your order for you, then contact me as soon as possible, and I'll make sure I've got everything set and ready to be able to place your order as soon as the catalog starts. Like as soon as the ordering is open, I'll place your order for you. No problem. None at all. Just let me know how I can help you. That's what I'm here for. So this week we have a feature on my blog of the Serene Garden stamp set. I've been featuring lots of Serene Garden projects, and this is a card that I made that was earlier this week, and this was created for a color challenge at Stampin' Paper, but it's a good, just in general technique anyways. This is watercoloring, and this is on watercolor paper. This is not watercolor paper, this is not, and this is not. This is all Thick Whisper White. But the panel that is inlaid here is a watercolor panel. I'm glad you guys like the Color Club idea. Thanks Betty and Joanne. The Color Club is something that it's not going to be hard. I'm trying very hard to make it easy for everybody to be able to accommodate their new colors. So it's going to be wonderful because these are all new colors on this card. So I've used here Gorgeous Grape, Granny Apple Green, and Coastal Cabana. And I couldn't get the card to look this way if I didn't use those new colors. So that's a little peek into what you can do with the new colors. And if you don't have the new colors, then you can make it out of you can get the stamp set and make it out of alternate colors, and it will be just as lovely, but it won't look the same. Coastal Cabana is the color that I hear the most chatter about, that everybody's really excited about. And I am too. I'm loving using it. This is a deeper concentration of Coastal Cabana, and this is just a very diluted wash of Coastal Cabana. And this card went together in a flash. Now, last week when I did my Facebook Live, I demonstrated my tips on embossing on watercolor paper, how to do heat embossing on watercolor paper. So this is the very panel that I used last week to show the do's, do this, and you will find more success. So I took that panel the same day and I created this card, and it shows the versatility. Now the stamp on the stamp case is oriented in this way, but as you can see here, it doesn't have to be. I have flowers that are going both directions, so why not turn it? So here is what it looks like from one direction. And here's the other direction. So I think this stamp set is going to be a favorite of mine, and I hope it will be of yours as well. And there's so much we can do with it. It's just incredible. So this card was easy to put together, and I used the sentiment from Abstract Impressions that's right here. If flowers were hugs, I'd send you 1,000. So what I did was I masked off the bottom portion of this stamp, and I just stamped the top. And then on the inside, I stamped the whole thing as a whole, and added some different generations of that gorgeous grape with the butterfly that is from the stamp set. I think we'll be working with this one next week. There's lots of possibilities with this as well. But we'll be using a greeting today on our project. This stamp set doesn't have any sentiments at all. I guess it's because it's packed full of really large images, and maybe it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to use your sentiments that you love from one stamp set and pair them with another favorite stamp set. So let's look at one more project. Now this is a sneak peek at one that will be, oh, thank you, Betty. This is a sneak peek at a card that will be on my blog this weekend. I am not making a video for it. It is a fancy fold card, and this is called a double Z fold box card. As you can see, it is within the size of an envelope. It folds down flat, and I have done some watercoloring here. There will be a tutorial for this that is being sold at the Addictive Designs website. So Bronwyn will have a tutorial for it. I haven't started working on it yet, but I need to. It's on my list. So this is one of those fancy fold cards that opens up like this. Of course, it'll lay flat too, but this is the way that people tend to have it just stand up by itself. So I used the Serene Garden, and I added the watercolor to the images that are fussy cut. Plus I embossed into the background with the big embossing die, and I'll discuss it more in the tutorial, but this is a fun card to look forward to. And that's also from this stamp set, Serene Garden. Oh, thanks, Betty. I'm glad you like it. This was a lot of fun to create. So I'm going to do a little bit more coloring with this today with you all. And it's not going to be watercoloring this time. It's going to be some Stampin Blends alcohol markers. So with a stamp set like this that has open line art, there's lots of different ways that we can feature the coloring. Now I've got all my Stampin Blends here. There is a color that's going to be retiring that's in here. We've got Pink Pirouette that is retiring, and it's not going to be sold anymore. So if you like Pink Pirouette in the Stampin Blends, then get it now while you can, because it's not going to be eligible to be ordered anymore. And that's a sad thing, because I really love this color. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for sharing the video. I appreciate that. So when we look at using these alcohol markers, then that's when the formula needs to come up to mind of when you use watercolor, you stamp with a waterproof ink so that it doesn't smudge. And the reverse for if you are going to color with alcohol markers, then you need to stamp with a water-based. And the reason is because when you stamp with a particular ink, let's say Basic Black Archival or Stays On, then the alcohol that's in these markers is going to push the alcohol that's stamped onto the paper, and it's just going to be a big blobby mess. It could be a good look, though. Sometimes it gives a nice, once that black blurs a little bit, it could be a nice look. But the point is that, is it intentional or not intentional? So intentionally, I have stamped with Memento Tuxedo Black, and it says right here on the front, fade-resistant dye ink. And dye ink is made from water. So this is one easy way to remember that you've got to use the opposites when it comes to alcohol markers. When you watercolor, you could use this, but not on watercolor paper, because the water is going to move the black line away. It's going to be a big piece of mud, a big puddle of mud. As my oldest son, Trip, he would say, Pete the cat stepped in a large puddle of mud. This is one of the book series that he reads called Pete the Cat. So let's get started on some coloring tips for Serene Garden. So I want to create a card that has a nice, bold, floral sentiment as far as, what the color focus is, but I don't want the colors to be way too punchy or far too bold and bright. And that's one thing that I've had a question about is how do you get a subtle look when it comes to alcohol markers? So let's take a look at just straight coloring. So if I want to color with, let's say, here's light rich raspberry and dark rich raspberry. So let's practice on some flowers over here. There is a key ingredient when it comes to using the Stampin' Blends, and that is the color lifter. So first, we're going to not use the color lifter. So what I can do is just color the image, and I get close to the black stamped line, but I don't go on the black stamped line. And the reason is because the colors will bleed a little bit into the paper, and that's the point. That's what we like about the markers, but that's also one thing that we have to remember. So leave a little room for the color to spread. So there's two different tips on the markers, and one is a bullet tip and one is a brush. I'm just going to use the bullet tip here to go in and add a little bit of a shadow. So this is what the look is when it's just solid color, okay? There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just a little bit more color than what I would plan to have on this particular project. And as the color dries up, then you can see that it kind of fans a little bit and moves. But for the purpose today, I want to share how to create a subtle look with the Stampin' Blends. So that's where this color lifter comes in. And I can tell you that I have gone through a lot of color lifters, and that's okay. These markers are price point affordable by Stampin' Up. They're disposable. When you get one dried out, you get another one. And the color lifter is one that when I order them, I order 2 or maybe 3, depending on what projects I have coming up. So let's do a little bit of comparison. We'll do the same exact flower, and we're going to give it a subtle look. So I want to use that bullet end again, and I'm going to go above that black line that I'm coloring against, but I'm trying really hard not to touch it. Okay, so I'm adding that shadow in the exact same place. But look what we can do with the color lifter. So I'm going to use kind of like a circular motion with the bullet end. And what it's going to do, and I keep kind of like go this way and then this way and this way and this way. What it's going to do is it's going to fade back the colors just enough. And I have to keep this above or down, into the same petal that I'm working on. So it's going to soften up that line because I'm not touching the back end of the line, I'm just touching the front end of it. And all of a sudden, that same color can be so subtle in reverse to this type of an image. And again, I want to say that there's nothing wrong with coloring like this. But what if it's not what somebody had in mind? Then this is the opportunity to be able to stretch your supplies and do more with them. So here's that dark And we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom half of the petal. And immediately I'm going to start doing the little circles. And I am giving a good little amount of pressure. And you don't have to work in circles. That's what works for me. And this is stamped onto thick Whisper White cardstock. So it starts to get a little spotty sometimes, and that's all right. And once you add the color lifter, it's like dropping a little drip of ink refill into a little bowl of water. It's going to spread out and it's going to disperse. So when I added the extra fluid, then that's what's happening, is you're going to see this move around. But this is the look that I'm going for. I want something that looks a little more like this, and I can see the white in the flower. The flower that I had in mind with this is a buttercup. And when I was a kid, I really liked to pick buttercups. They were my favorite flower. They're very delicate flowers, and they're very delicate looking flowers as far as their colors go. And I really like them. So this is what I had in mind. So let's dive right in, and we're going to use another example before we color for the project today. But this is a comparison of what you can do with the color lifter and just creating a little bit more shading. And this is going to dry back a little bit. So if you're just stopping in, then please take a minute to say hi. I'd love to say hi back to you, where you're from. I've stamped these two little images here just for practice. I colored this one right before I started the video, and I wanted to demonstrate, let's get the other card here with the bird. But I wanted to demonstrate how versatile this image is. So you can see the subtle, this is on thick Whisper White, stamped with smoky slate, and I used just the tiniest bit of Coastal Cabana, just under where the shading of the wings would be and on the tip of the tail. There's a lot of coloring that can be done on this. It looks like a dove to me, but what if I want it to look like something that's not a dove? Just because it's mine and I can choose to color it however I want. Hi, Linda. Thank you for sharing it, Betty. So I colored this in with light cherry cobbler, dark cherry cobbler. Of course, I used the color lifter, which is this one. And then I used on the wings some of the crumb cake and gray. And that's how the coloring came up. Now, if you notice, I don't know how well you can see it. I'll bring it up to the camera. But up on the top of the head, it doesn't look like a solid color, and neither does it do here. That's the thing about whenever the alcohol fluid enters into the paper, then it goes down, and then the paper fibers are showing a little bit more. So there's a different look to this type of coloring, and I really like it. It's beautiful. But it's very versatile. It's so different from watercoloring. I have a look at what the watercoloring would look like with this bird. Totally different, isn't it? I mean, even if these were a different color flower, it just gives it an absolutely different look. So I'm going to color another one of these birds so that we can share that today. Hi, Jess. I'm so happy to see you. Oh, thank you, Patricia. I'm glad you could stop by, and thank you for your compliment. If I go too fast on any of this, then please tell me to repeat something. I don't mind at all. So the first thing that I'm going to do with the bird, and I'll color one exactly like this so that we can take it step by step. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I want some of the colors to stay in place and some of the colors to move. So I'm going to take this color lifter, which is just the empty, and I'm going to color the whole thing in. Just a real quick, here it is. because I know my colors are going to move around more than I want them to, but at least now they're moving around in a good way. So with my lighter of the two reds, and this is the light cherry cobbler, I'm going to use the brush end because it has a finer tip, and I'm going to add the color above the wing. And do you see how it's moving already? It happens that fast. It just really starts spreading. Okay, and then in this area here, I'm putting it right smack in the middle between those two lines, and then the color lifter fluid is going to spread it around. And then I'm going around this area too, and I'm leaving some space. And I'm going to put this just up towards the head a little bit. Now that doesn't look like anything, I know and I understand, but we're going to start moving this color around now, because this is a lot darker than the body of this one. I apologize if the camera shakes, but this is what I need to do I have to apply some pressure to get that color to really move around. I'm going to have to add a little bit more here. I'm trying to stay inside that area. Okay. Now, I'm going to stay away from the very front where the eye is, and I'm going to just kind of use some pushback motions. And the residual ink that is on the end of my color lifter is going to fill in where the area was white. Now I'm going to work in that circle motion, and I'm pushing toward the black line that's stamped. So it's going to give me the look of the red, but there's more red on the back. You can see here. The red doesn't disappear. It's just being pushed away. So I'm going to follow that line around and keep pushing, and I'm staying away from the back end of the of the red, because imagine there's that wall and this wall of the red line, and I want to touch and move around part of the red line, but not all of it, because I want that red color to stay. I don't want it to go away all together. Hi, Tammy. So I'm going to add more coloring here to the tail. And I didn't add all of it at one time because it looks like something happened to my marker. I'll have to do a repair on that later. Because I want the colors to be wet whenever I mix them. So I need to reapply sometimes or wait a little bit before I start working on a certain area. Now I know I'm going to fussy cut this bird. So one thing that I don't need to worry about is, see how much the bleed is up here? But one thing I don't need to worry about is staying inside the line. What I do want to worry about is to make sure that I'm controlling where the colors, the shadows of where the colors are. So I'm going to add just a little more red here, just to make sure we don't have any white areas. And then it's just blending and so nicely. This is the magic of the Stampin Blends markers. It never gets old. I love it. Just like heat embossing. Never gets old. So Kathy is asking, what's the difference between color lifter and blender pen? You've used the blender pen to move color around. The blender pen, I don't think that it's the same formula of, I'm going to grab them here. I don't think that it's the same formula of solution that's inside, because this is like an empty colored Stampin' Blends, and I don't think that the blender pen is the same formula. It could be, but it says here for blending chalks and water-based inks. And this is specifically not water-based. This is alcohol-based. So that's what I see the difference is that they are created to move around color that is for two different types of a coloring tool. That's what I would say right off the bat is the first thing. Now, could it be that it works the same? It could be. That would be something that if you try, I would love to hear about, because that would be cool. Totally cool. All right, so I'm going to add the crumb cake. This is dark crumb cake. I'm going to add that in the areas that are in the shadow of the wing. And bring it out with some flicking motions. And what I accomplish with those flicking motions is that there's more color down here than there is down here, and it'll allow me to get that faded out look or that ombre look. Now I'm going to use the brush end this time instead of the bullet end, and I'm going to use those same flicking motions, and it's going to help the color spread this way. And I'm staying away from the very base of the color because I want that nice brown to stay where it is. So if this bird were actually out in the world, then, you know, where something overlaps, it would be a little more shadowed. Betty doesn't have the blender pens. Well, the blender pen is something to use like on alcohol. I mean on what are they called? Watercolor pencils. You can use that to activate. There's a lot of different things we can do with the blender pens. It's mainly used though as like for a watercolor. Or, you know, you can take your stamp pads and use the blender pen, and it kind of works as a paintbrush, but with a different effect. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice little coloring tool. But with the advent of all these other coloring tools that we have now, I find that I don't use the blender pen as much. So I've added some of this gray, and I don't want the brown to go away completely. I want it to still be around a little bit. I've got more brown on this one. I think I can successfully add more. Let's get a lighter color of brown. That's ivory. And this is light crumb cake. I don't normally have my markers stored in this kind of a box, but I wanted to have them handy for this project today. Oh, I want to mention that on my YouTube channel, this coming Sunday, I'm going to do a studio tour, a video studio tour. So be sure to stay tuned or to tune back in, and you'll get to see a full video tour of my studio. So I'm going to now add the color on the top part of the wing as I did right here. Imagine if we did this in blues. I think it would look really nice in blues or purples. We have all new colors that are going to be coming out with the new catalog. All the in colors are now going to be available in the Stampin Blends, which is really exciting for anyone that likes to do some coloring. So I'm adding this dark cherry cobbler, and I'm staying away from that black line. I'm getting close but not on. And then I go back and dab it in where it's not close enough. And that's pretty much it. And because it has kind of bled around a little bit is where using the scissors. Now, I know that there's a die that comes with this particular image, and that's really cool, but I'll show you. When I die cut this, it's okay to have the extra space around, but when I use Stampin Blends, I try not to do that extra space if I know my ink is going to bleed. See how much extra room there is? Now, if I were to die cut this, then I'll show you what it's going to look like. It's going to look like it has this extra space around it for the die, and sometimes that's okay, although usually I tend to prefer a clean look to my projects. Okay, so now let's have a look on a white piece of paper, and you can see that the bleed marks will show up. But on this bird, I cut right up to the black edge with my scissors, and this is what the difference is. This is the fussy cut, and this is the one that would be the look of using the dies. Thanks, Betty. I'm excited to share it. I do have a few more things that are coming in, but I have so many questions about my studio that I thought it would be nice to do a video, and then I'll do a follow-up video whenever I have more items that are coming in next week. Not much, but it's for my workspace that I've finally made a decision on what I wanted to use for my workspace. So this is how we would use the Stampin Blends markers to color in the bird, and this is a regular dye ink with a blender pen is how I did this one. And there's a significant difference in the look, as you can tell. It's not a good or a bad on either way. It just is different. It's just something different. Make sure you can see both of those there. So if you have any questions about the coloring of the Stampin' Blends on this stamp set, then this is the right place to put it, is on this video here. All right, so now let's get to our project today. And I'm going to create the clean looking card with this. I have already stamped with the Versamark, or the Memento, sorry, Memento water-based ink. And I have, to save time, I have colored and cut these images. Now, one thing that I would like to share is to take an image such as this. It's also a possibility to isolate some of the image and use it that's fussy cut. Now, I would turn it this way, and this is the portion that's right here. So check that out. That's just a little area of this very large stamp, and there is a lot more to this really big stamp than what it appears to be to me at first glance. So this is just a portion, and I colored that ahead of time, and it was fussy cut. There is not a die that cuts this out, so I want to be clear about that. This is fussy cut. A lot of times I'll fussy cut something that is just an area of another one. Thank you, Anne Marie, and I'm glad to see you here. So let's just concentrate on this area here, and to help be able to identify what we're going to do, I'm going to use a marker, and I will go around, but not too close, to the areas that I want to color. Okay, so I'm going to color what's inside of the blue circle. And I'll be using the same technique that I used on this type of coloring here. So I'm going to be using this color lifter again, and I'll show you. I wanted to mention that as you use your alcohol markers more, one thing that happens is the ends get frayed a little bit. So I will see if you can see how easily I'm barely giving any pressure to the end of this brush tip, and it's done. It's like so done. And there's not as much fluid in there as there was. So this marker is on its way out the door. I do have a replacement for it, but it still has some life in it yet. So we're gonna give it a go today. I'm going to color first the green images because they cover more space and their leaves are quick to color. As you can see, this is just the easy part. Since it'll be fussy cut, then I don't have to worry about staying in the lines. Like there's literally there's no use of the end of this at all. The fluid won't even carry up to the end. But the other side is perfectly fine. It's because I've done a lot of tutorials and taught a lot of classes online with this particular marker, and it has taken a beating. It has really done its job. So I'm giving the lighter of the 2 old olives onto all the greenery that is inside this area that I'm going to fussy cut. And then I'll take the darker of the 2 old olives. I can use the brush end. You see how the color goes all the way up? That's what the difference is. I'm going to add just some color into where the contour, the natural contour of the leaf would be. Sometimes it's at the bottom, sometimes it's right down the middle. And then also on the stem, keeping in mind that the paper is already wet and it's going to be pulled around a little bit. So now I need to get this light one back out. So I'm working light, dark, light in order to blend out the colors. And I'm going to just move around. I'll use a circular motion. You can use any motion that helps you to be able to move out the blend. And what it's going to do is it's going to push that darker shade around. It doesn't have to push it all over evenly because it's going to have a natural look if it's uneven. Okay, and just kind of run back up through here where I added those color contours. And so my greenery is done. That quick, that fast. Really. It does happen fast sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to use the lighter of the 2 rich razzleberries to color in these flowers. And this will be just like we did here. So this is what it would look like if we had those dark flowers, and that's okay. But if we have those light flowers, then as you can see, it just gives a different look. So I'm going to add the coloring above that black line that is stamped. And then I'm going to spread it out with the color lifter. So I'm going to stay away from that opposite baseline because I want the color to stay down there. I want it to just kind of spread out. You see how it just softens up that line? So I look at it as each line that's created, and let's make one here. I look at it as, here's my line. Now, I can have one side of it blur out and the other side of it stay solid by not touching the other side of that line. So by adding the color lifter just to that one side, you see how it softens it up? It just really is something that can stretch out your supplies and your tools. It really makes a big difference. And it's nice to repurpose what we have, isn't it? So this is going to be the image that is fussy cut here. So let's pretend like chop, 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 voila. Here we go. Look at it. It's all fussy cut. Isn't that the miracle of the camera, right? And I have also colored in the exact same way one of these images and the big buttercup. We're going to call this a buttercup for lack of another word of what it could be. And the images that are in, you're welcome, Joanne. It's interesting how this line can change. Now, another thing you could do is add, let's see, let me get a yellow. So I can add to this rich raspberry, I can add a yellow to do the exact same thing that I did with the color lifter. and it's going to kind of change the color, and it's going to bleed it out. So look what happens whenever we add a different color. Now I do have an online class for using Stampin' Blends and how to use different techniques. The class it's an online course because it's extensive. There's over 12 hours, there's worksheets, there's so much stuff. If you purchase the full set of Stampin' Blends in my online store, you get the class for free. But if you want to, you could purchase it, and I believe it's $25. And it's a self-paced course that you can go at your own speed. Okay, so I want to grab, I don't know how I forgot that, but I'm going to grab a card base for this, and then we're going to start putting this together. So I'd love to hear what you guys think would be a great color combination for the Serene Garden stamp set. What would be your go-to color combo? This would also be a great opportunity for me to share how I layer up my card panels. So I've had a few questions in the past about why and how do I use card panels that are white on white. Seafoam, oh yeah. Anne-Marie, yes. Anybody from anywhere in the world can buy the online class. If you go to my blog at jennystampsup.com, then click on tutorials, you'll find scroll down past all the other tutorials, and you can purchase it. It's $25 US. Okay, so the question I have that's been put to me before is I have these cards that have an 1/8 of an inch difference. This is what it looks like on, it's just like it's like a tiny framed mat. And I keep this Whisper White cardstock. I cut up a whole package at a time, and I keep them going. I use so many of them. So there's the different there's a difference between using thick Whisper White and Whisper White. And thick Whisper White sometimes is not necessary if I'm going to get a layered up look. I can use just the regular Whisper White. As you can tell, this is not thick Whisper White. So I keep these card panels cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4, which is 1/4 of an inch smaller than what my card base is. And that's what I usually have as a go-to. So what I do is I pull out my trimmer and I cut 1/8 of an inch off in one direction. And then I go for it again in the other direction. And now I'm able to take this and add it to, this is a regular 4 by 5 1/4. And I add it with snail. Can't live without snail adhesive. What did I ever do before I discovered it? I got messy with glue, that's what I did. Okay, so now I have a card panel, and this has a little bit more of a polished or framed look. Hey Karen, I'm glad you could stop by today. So mint macaron is what Jess Brown is saying. Jess, do you see a lot of mint macaron in your garden? I would be interested to hear that. I love mint macaron too. So excited that it's back. So this is going to be raised on dimensionals. And I try to always go with a formula for my cards that I don't go above 2 layers. And the reason for that is because of the mailing system. And I never know where I'm going to send a card in the world because I send them all over the world. And I don't want it to be destroyed. Sometimes the postal system is not our friend. They usually are, and they're always friendly people. But the machines that they use, we can ask for them to be hand sorted by writing it, but I don't think that they always are able to do that. I'm not sure. You're a Tombow girl, Jess. Oh, goodness. Does it get messy for you? I know it always gets messy for me. There's never an exception. Never. And then the glue gets on everything else. And so snail is a game changer for me. Oh, no, I forgot to stamp my sentiment. Isn't that just like me? Okay, so I have 2 options here. I can make another panel to put over this, or I can start over, as so many of us have done. I'm sure, this happens all the time. All right, because I want this card to be used in a challenge, I'm going to put this card in the Global Design Project Challenge. I'm going to start over just on the part that has to be trimmed down. And I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to stamp on it. So this is going to go 1/8 of an inch smaller. So sorry about that. That happens to me way too often, especially if I'm trying to talk and do something at the same time. Then it doesn't always work right in my brain. And I can't always blame it on medication. Wouldn't it be great if we could blame everything on medication? Okay, so this is definitely 1/8 of an inch smaller. I can add it to my card base, but don't add my card base yet to the rest of the project. Because I have to stamp. We got to do some stamping today. So Karen is Tombow too. You can't get things straight with snail. Sometimes I have an issue and I pull the snail back up, Karen. But I would say overall, if I can line things up, then the snail is much easier for me. Here's a brand new card base. So the other card base is just ready for another project, right? We'll be all set. Okay. So I am totally adoring the sentiments that are in the Abstract Impressions stamp set. I'll be honest with you, the first time that I saw this, I was not excited about it. And these are not really my style of flowers. However, there's so many things that we can do with a stamp set that is out of the box, I'll say. And I started looking at some of the images, and I work with a few partners that are global partners that we make our tutorials together. And my 2 partners were so excited about this stamp set that I knew there had to be some really good stuff in it, that it had to be taken another look at it. And so I did, and I'm just loving these sentiments. But I also see some other, like if we turn this around a little bit, then we might get a little bit of a abstract hollyhock or a blue bonnet. It could be on a messy watercolor. This could look a little bit like a foxglove. Of course, it would be loose, very abstract. And I think it would be, there's a lot of possibilities. Now the rose I'm going to have to really get warmed up to. But I'm seeing some other garden flowers with this that have much more possibilities. So we're going to use the sentiment here that says kindness changes everything. And isn't that true? It really does. But it's a great sentiment. It's a fabulous sentiment that's good for any card, for anybody, for a guy or for a girl. So I'm going to stamp my sentiment first over here, and I have lined up on my grid paper, and then I'm trying to line my stamp up. I'm going to let that sit for just a minute and let that water-based ink soak into the paper where it's supposed to soak into. And then take that off. So Kathy says if you adhere with tape runner or the snail, a type of adhesive, you can use dental floss to run between the layers. Yes, I have heard that. I have seen that tip from Lydia, and it's a wonderful tip, but I have to tell you that my dental floss does not work the same way. It could be because I'm not as patient. And I'm not saying it doesn't work for anybody. It's just, it doesn't work for me. And I have a tendency to get, I want to get from point A to point B really quickly. And if I have to recreate a card, then sometimes I'm okay with that. That I might, you know, feel that I could improve it in some other way. That's the critic in my, that's the self-critic that always says, well, maybe if I did this a little differently. But it's a wonderful tip, and I appreciate you sharing it, Kathy. I'm sure Lydia Feeler would give you some hand claps. She'd say, yay. Heating it with a heat tool is Karen's advice. A little bit, and running the bone folder underneath. Aha! That's a good one. Thanks for sharing that one, Karen. We're going to keep you around here. You and Kathy are giving out these wonderful tips. We're going to need you every week. Okay, so we've now got our properly stamped panel. And let's start adding some of these images. Now, the reason I fussy cut this is because I wanted it to be able to kind of be moved around a little bit. And I could have just fussy cut or used the, let's have a look at this again. I could have just taken some of these and one of these guys, but I thought it would be great to make it look like it were actually, you know, the one plant. Okay, and I left a little bit extra here that went to the edge of the paper, and I'm going to put little buttercup right over here. And this one I think I'm going to save for the inside because I don't feel like it has so much of a place on the inside. I mean, it could go in some different areas, but I'm just not sure exactly where I would put it. So here come the mini glue dots, my favorite. And I'm going to adhere this down to directly down to the card with mini glue dots. And I'll probably be generous with them because I don't want my, I don't want this to come off or kind of buckle a little bit. Sometimes when the paper fibers have been manipulated, as much as I have moved around on this with thick whisper white with the alcohol markers, then it might give me a little pushback. So I often use mini glue dots. They're one of my favorite adhesives, and there's another thing that's really not messy. And you Tombow girls will be all for Tombow right now. Say, oh, come on, Jenny, just put it down with Tombow. I can't do it. I just got to tell you, I can't do it. I could. Joanne has a good idea. She says she could put it together under the sentiment. We'll take a look at what that would look like whenever I get this thing loaded up with MGDs. And I don't want to forget the stem, so I'm going to take the edge of my scissors, and you could use a paper piercing tool, and I'm going to fold that glue dot until it gets to be a little Tootsie Roll. And that way it's narrow enough to fit on the stem. So we're going to make a little Tootsie Rolls. And add it to a couple of different places. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like if I put it under. I don't really have enough room. I mean, it would be able to hang off of the bottom, but I really want to get it up here because the sketch from the Global Design Project is has it in this kind of a way. So I'm going to try, and you should all go over to Global Design Project and put a card in for this week's challenge. You and I and everybody have a chance to be a guest designer for 6 months on there. Isn't that exciting? Okay, we're going to raise this one up because this will be my second layer. That's as high as I'll allow it to go. That should be good. Oh, the small flower. Yeah, I see what you mean, Joe. I don't know. It's a great idea, but to me, it just it's going to interfere a little bit too much. Now, this is a portion of a leaf, and of course, this is a dead end branch right here. So I want my image to just cover over. I've got a stray glue backing here. I want it to cover up this dead end here and this this end. So I'm going to try to turn it in a way that it will successfully camouflage those other ends. And if I need to, then this can be moved in a little bit. I think it does need to. And I will employ another mini glue dot. Right underneath it and force it to go in a different direction. There we go. Now it will more or less stay put. There we go, yay! So what else could we choose to put on this card, or is it finished the way it is? I think it needs maybe just a little bit of sparkly stuff. Aw, thanks guys, I'm glad you like it. Oh, thanks, Jess. I don't know. It would be great. 6 months on the team would be nice. I have just been asked to go on a new design team for Stampin' Up Only challenge. So, but that one's an every 2 week, and I'm trying not to overcommit because we all know how things get whenever we get a little too busy. And I don't like to not be able to fulfill my commitments. All right, let me grab some sequins and let's see what we can add to this. So I've been using the Tranquil Textures sprinkles a whole lot. These are like kind of marine colors, but take the fact that they're marine colors away and look at, you've got all these wonderful little, there's some purple tinted, there are some, let's look at this little guy right here if I can get him out. This is almost like a brown look. Let's put it on a piece of white. See, now this is like a brown stone. They're little teeny tiny stones. And I think I will need my paper piercing tool to get them out. So this is my paper piercing tool with a mini glue dot on the end that's dried up just a little bit. So I push my fingernails on it and it reactivates it a little bit. Kathy, that's exactly what I had planned. I want to put it on. Oh, thanks, Anne Marie. I'm happy. I hope you guys will follow the Stampin' Up Only challenge. They're trying really hard to attract new challenge players, and it's a wonderful group of stampers too. So I'm going to pick up with the end of this, and I think I'll use some of these little pearl looking, the odd sized pearl looking pieces. Our basic pearls in regular white are going away. I'm so sad to see them go, but we have pearls in all kinds of other lovely colors, which is wonderful. but I am a fan of classic, and I like the white pearls. So this is my replacement for those white pearls, is adding these tiny little bitty seed beads. And then I can just flip them around to where the hole is on the side and not on the top, to where it's like the size of a pearl. And I'm just going to add a couple of them. So again, I'm going to pick up with the end of my little paper piercing tool, add just a drop of this fine tip glue pen. There are lots of jewel picker type of things that are available around. I try to use what I've already got in my craft supplies. Oh, there's a clear one too. See, there's some clear ones in here as well. Some little clear beads and clear little, like almost like little rocks. Okay, and I will add one more here. That'll give me that visual triangle. And I'm going to put it on its side. That's not something I usually have to do with regular sequins. Once I put them in place, they're in place. But with these pretty little beads, then I have to turn them on their sides if I don't want that part to show. Close this glue up before it starts to dry a little bit. And I think the front of the card is done. What do you guys think? Have you checked out the purple rocks yet? Look at the purple. What do you think? Isn't that pretty? I've put those on a few projects. And they do show up nicely on camera too. So that way, and through the mail, I would always put a piece of cardstock on top of that, just to be a buffer, to make sure that it doesn't go through the envelope. All right, so for the inside of the card, we can add this little guy right here. He has a place. Just here on the inside. And now for you Tombow lovers, I will definitely use this Tombow because that's the one thing that I need the help with whenever I add to the inside of the card. That gives me just enough time with the Tombow to be able to slide it into place. And the reason I use just those dots in those individual places is because it allows me to be able to move it around, but it doesn't buckle the card. And there it is. So we have Serene Garden, and we're combining abstract impressions with the sentiment. And we'll take a look at some of these other cards as well. I'm sure this little red bird here, reminds me of a cardinal. I'm sure we'll get this cardinal on a card very soon. And you guys will be in the know because you'll know that we created it together. And then this is going to be this weekend for this little beauty here. And this is the same fussy cut area that's in the box part of the card. And this has got a lot of watercoloring on it. So you'll have to watch my blog this weekend. It's probably Saturday, I think it's Saturday is when this one's going to be on. So Karen is saying that she didn't think she wanted Serene Garden, but these cards have proved her wrong. I'm sorry, Karen. I know. This is one of the first ones when I saw the images that I knew it was going to be something that I couldn't say no to. Thank you, Anne Marie. I'm glad you like it. And thank you, Kathy. It is a beautiful set. Thanks, Fran. Thank you, Jess. So this stamp set has no sentiments. And this stamp set, I'm drawn to the sentiments. So pairing them together is a bonus. This is something that I get to use these nice words that I like, and I get to use these nice images. For this card right here, I used the sentiment from Rooted in Nature, and I'll get that for you. This is from the Nature's Poem Suite, and there are like, gosh, so many images. And we've got sentiments of all different size and type. So we have the big ones, we have some blocky, we have some long, and there's just this tiny little just for you that, what do you do with a just for you? Well, you feature it with some other images if you need to, and that's where I got that image from. So I hope you like Serene Garden. I have some more projects coming up this week, including this one. And on my blog today is this card. Sorry for all my Post-its. I Post-it note everything. This is the card that's on my blog today. It's part of the Be Inspired Design Team blog hop. And we are sharing ideas for masculine cards for this week. And I share on my blog post the 2 different techniques that I use to create this. And it's not a trick of the light. This is glossy white paper. And I use that with some dark brown colors to get the look of a mushroom. So it kind of looks to me like a mushroom with this kind of coloring. I'm glad you guys like it. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Karen, I've got to do the same thing too. Thank you, Betty. Thanks, Jess. I am really excited about all the new products. And if you guys have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and your demonstrator is waiting to send you a catalog, then reach out to your demonstrator and let them know and get your catalog as soon as possible. I have a feeling that there's a couple of items in particular that are going to be really, really popular. I have sent my catalogs out to anybody that has placed an order in the last 6 months. And if you haven't received a catalog from me and you would like to get a catalog, then please let me know and I will get one out to you if you don't have a demonstrator or if I'm currently your demonstrator. But if you want to become a demonstrator, then this is your open invitation to join my team. I would love to have you on there, and you get all the benefits and the perks of being a demonstrator. Plus, people on my team get all my tutorials for free, and we just really have a good time. I have a wonderful group of crafters that I adore, and I would love to have you be able to join them if you so want to. So thanks again today. This is the card that we created, and Serene Garden is going to be available on June 1st. If you have any questions about Color Club, then please don't hesitate to ask. If you want to join Color Club, then just follow my blog, jennystampsup.com. Click on the little Color Club icon that's on the sidebar, and it'll get you any of the information. So thank you all again today, and I'll see you next week for another live demonstration at 10:30 a.m. on my Facebook business channel, and that's 10:30 a.m. Eastern. So if I don't see you before then, the catalog will have launched, and I hope you have a wonderful time with your catalog launch. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching the video. Have a good day.